So we're going to do 3 weeks of just what we would call hamstring isos. Just lean out, grab it. It is very much, it would probably fall in the motor control category in terms of, hey, I want you to have your glutes on, I want you to have your anterior abdominal wall tight, and then I want you to just come out and engage your hamstrings while you keep that stacked posture. Then for 3 weeks, we're going to add some eccentric to that, trying to not lose that posture, because when you watch people do Nordics and people will show videos of them, they're just not maintaining the proper position. They're just trying to do something that looks like a successful down and up, which usually ends up with a really big degree of hip flexion. Hip flexion, trunk flexion, I guess, however you want to look at it, but it's just not good. And I'm trying to make the point that, hey, there's a right and wrong.
All right, hey everybody, I'm your host, Anthony Renna. Welcome to episode 422 of the Strength Coach Podcast. We're talking about relevant topics with top coaches in the fitness industry to help you become a better coach, trainer, therapist, or business owner. We're brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. Check out performbetter.com to learn about their new collaboration with Center and Hyrox. They're taking the World Series of Fitness Racing to the next level with the world's first ever competition equipment made for the sport. And Perform Better is now carrying that equipment. Very cool stuff. They debuted it at the Providence Summit. They got a lot of cool stuff coming in the pipeline with them. You can see more at performbetter.com. Remember, there's always something on sale there too. All right, today I have on Coach Boyle. We spoke about his latest appearance on the Peter Attia podcast, Drive. What I keep saying is the second best podcast he's ever been on. And he's been posting a lot of videos from on Instagram. And basically, I had some questions for him on all of them. So we're going to go over his Nordics progression, the barbell straight leg deadlift corrections that I asked him about, unilateral hip lifts, what he considers to be the best exercise you're probably not doing, and the Spanish split squat for people with knee pain and post knee surgery. Also today for the Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play, we've got Mark Fisher back on. He's going to talk about retention, what he considers the least sexy but incredibly important element of business. Everyone wants to focus on leads, but you can make your life a lot easier and help your business grow if you focus on retaining your clients. Check out businessforunicorns.com. They have a ton of free resources, guys, not just for gym owners, but all trainers. So here's Mark Fisher.
Welcome to the Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play. In each segment, we give you one actionable tip, strategy, or tactic that you can use to build a fitness business and a life you love. And if you want more business building resources, you can find a ton of free resources at businessforunicorns.com, or you can also find us by clicking the link in the show notes. So today I want to talk about the least sexy but incredibly important element of any successful fitness business, and that is retention. Now, listen, I talk to a lot of gym owners and fitness professionals every day, every week, and a lot of people want more leads. And that makes sense. More leads are important, right? If you want to grow your business, you have to have people expressing interest in what you do. You have to make sales. You have to get new clients, and that's all well and good. But it doesn't matter how much you're putting in the top of the bucket if a lot of things are falling outside the bottom. So while there is variance for what retention you should be shooting for based on what kind of fitness business you have, in general, particularly if we're dealing with the world of brick and mortar gyms, we want to see churn at 5% or less. So what that means is if you have 100 clients at the beginning of the month, we don't want to lose more than 5 on a regular basis. Obviously, there's going to be some ebbs and flows here and there, but in general, the average should be 5 or less. The best gyms do 4 and sometimes even 3%. Now, if you're, say, 6, 7, 8, 10, well, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that's actually pretty common. A lot of fitness businesses average 8 to 10%, sometimes even more. The bad news is it's very hard to grow a business if you're losing that many clients, because think about it. The more clients you have, the more people are terminating, because your churn percentage is going to scale up as the business grows. So if you're losing 3 clients per month and you want to grow by 3 clients each month, well, now you only need to make 6 sales. But if you want to go by 3 clients per month, but you're losing 20 clients per month. Well, now you need to sell 23 clients, right? And that's very challenging. So I think there's 3 big buckets of things we can look at to improve your churn if it's not where you want it to be. First, we want to look at the actual service, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what people are hiring us for. They're looking for a service that provides both a great experience and results. It's true the community is also a piece of this, but if they're not having a good time in the workouts, if the workouts are not effective, if they're not making the changes that they want to be making in their physiology, that's going to be an issue, right? So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure there's clear standard operating procedures, so there's a consistent and effective experience that creates the results you want. And it's very important if you have other people that work with you that they also are singing from that same songbook, right? You can kind of wing this, I guess, if you're doing your own thing, but I think it's still better to have it external and written. And I would note that the session experience has 2 halves to my mind. You have the actual training piece, which is things like program design, the technical coaching of the movements, and then you have the customer service experience, right? What are the things that need to happen every session? So as an example, at Mark Fisher Fitness, our classes had up to 15 people at a time. And the standard was, as one of the many things that had to happen that we would audit and grade our coaches on, was say each client's name 3 times while connecting with them in some meaningful way, right? Ideally giving some technical cue or something that felt like the client was being seen and cared for, and that the experience was meaningful to them, that they weren't just working out on their own, right? Which particularly in group models, that's often where things fall off the cliff and get muddy. So first, we have the actual training experience. Second, I think in 2025, a lot of the reasons people stick around in gyms is because of things that happen outside the session. So I think having a great experience that gets results is just table stakes. I think most group models in particular really benefit for some sort of regular, ongoing, what we call in Business for Unicorns, momentum meetings, right? Like a laser coaching session that is one-on-one. And again, if you only do group, it's even more important. Now, you might only do this every 2 to 3 months, sometimes maybe every 6 months. This is going to depend, of course, on how your business is set up and how many clients you have. But I think giving people a one-on-one opportunity to reflect on what sort of progress they've made and to be celebrated for it is going to have them more inclined to stick around. And just as important, of course, if they're not seeing results, help them with some behavior change modifications, give them some direction on what they need to do different to actually get results and seeing progress. And I would note, outside of any strategy planning benefit, which is, of course, a big piece of these sort of sessions, there's also the opportunity to build a relationship, right? Something that says, I care about you, you matter to me, you're special, right? Now, the third bucket of things we might do to improve retention are any number of outside the session bells and whistles that will help people feel cared for, right? Because I think in summation, a lot of the game here is following the great metaphor by the cosmetics entrepreneur Mary Kay, who said everyone has a necklace, an invisible necklace on their chest that says, make me feel special. So I'm not saying you need to do all of these, but some examples of ways you can really build personal connection with your clients are having some sort of weekly or monthly standard around handwritten cards, a weekly or monthly standard around some sort of maybe text, email, or phone call communication. You could have a weekly or monthly standard around a number of personalized gifts you give to a client. And by the way, you don't need to spend a lot of money on that, but that can go a really long way to present a client with a book or a movie ticket or some sort of gift based on something that came up during one of the sessions, right? I would even lump in periodic gym community events in there. How often you have them depends, as always, a bit on your model and capacity. But in general, I think these should happen about every 3 months, I think is a good pulse for most gyms. Because if you do it too often, the luster will wear off. But if you don't do them often enough, you miss the opportunity to really connect with clients and really knit together and gel that community. So those are just some of the strategies you can consider if you find retention is not where it is. Because remember, you can get all the leads in the world you want and sell all the new members, but we can only have a business that works, and we can only help people change lives if they stick around and work with us for the long haul. So if you want an outside eye to help brainstorm on this and learn a little bit more about how we help gym owners create more income, impact, and freedom, we offer free 10-minute brainstorm calls. You can click the link in the show notes below to sign up for one of those, or you can go to go.businessunicorns.com/brainstorm. Thank you so much as always, and I'll see you next time for another Business for Unicorns Fitness Business Power Play.
All right, guys, now it's time for the strengthcoach.com and MBSC.TV Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle, strengthcoach.com, articles, videos, and the longest running forum in strength and conditioning and fitness. You can try out strengthcoach.com for 7 days for free. Go to strengthcoach.com to start your trial. NBSC.TV, where you're basically a fly on the wall at NBSC with staff meetings, programs, seminars, and in-services from top coaches. You can try that out for 7 days for free at NBSC.TV. Coach, how you doing?
I am doing great, Anthony. It is another beautiful day out here on lovely Plum Island, so I got no complaints.
Who's got it better? So we were talking a little earlier. Great job. I had to drive to New York the other day, and I listened because that's how long it is. But I listened to your Peter Attia Roundtable with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and Jeff Cavalieri on Peter Attia's Drive podcast, the second best podcast you've ever been on. Mike, good job with that. It was, I think, I really like where you're going with your stuff in terms of really trying to get it out to the masses. And I know you said it a couple times, because I do think there's so much really good information for you, like not just for strength coaches and fitness folks, but I think for the masses too. And I hope Peter realized that, and we'll get you back on by yourself as well, because there was a lot. I told you, I'm sitting there going, "Oh, Mike's dying right now." Because I was driving, I couldn't see the video. I'm like, Mike's like, his face is probably red. Like, let me answer. Ooh, me.
That was exactly how I was. I am not a good roundtable person, and I know that. So it's very difficult for me to kind of proverbially sit on my hands and be quiet at times when I'm thinking, oh my God, I really want to answer that question. What saved me there is that I wasn't thinking about it going in, but I did manage to steal a pen and a scrap of paper so I could make notes as people were talking about things that I was hopefully going to get to talk about when they were done. And that was really helpful. So I kind of had my next thought. Everything was percolating in my mind, and I was just scribbling my notes down instead of jumping around with my hand up, like, call on me, please, Peter. So, but honestly, it was a great experience. I have to thank Jeff Cavalieri. Was great in terms of, he was the one who had recommended me for it, and I thank him. He was very gracious to think they asked for somebody else kind of from the fitness, strength and conditioning world, and he tossed my name out there and got a chance to go to Austin and be part of a really cool experience. It is, I think, for people like us, we don't get into the mainstream that often, where we're getting a chance to be in a really large podcast environment where the end consumer is really the client. We generally don't talk to the clients, you and I. We're generally talking coaches, talking to trainers. And in that podcast, you're talking more directly to the client.
Absolutely. And I know there's a lot of coaches that were commenting about getting a lot out of that, of what you were talking about on that too. So I think one thing for me is, like, when I listen to you a lot of times, I think, how do I translate some of this stuff now to my clients and talk to them about that? Because I think sometimes, we don't want to talk to them about, like, use words like vastus medialis or whatever. But I think when we can, disseminate all the information and talk to them, because they're not idiots. We can speak to most of our clients are successful people. So, like, to slowly teach them what we're doing and our systems and why we do things, I think is a good thing. And then I have conversations about Peter's book all the time with my clients. So,
yeah, I mean, for me, it was more having the conversations with, it's really interesting where some of these really high level influencers like Peter or Gabrielle Lyon or somebody like that have really big followings, you start to look at those and realize that they themselves are not very representative of the client. And that was the point that I was trying to get across, was we're talking about people who have a job, who commute to work, who we're trying to get to work out 1 hour twice a week. That's the real world.
yes.
That's the world that we operate in. Even in our athlete world, a lot of times with our high school kids, we're still trying to get kids to work out twice a week. It's not, you forget that there aren't people who either are, exercise is their hobby. They love exercise. They want to, I want to lift every day. I want to ride my bike every day. That's not normal. That's unusual. And when you are unusual, you perceive yourself to be normal. And so I think hopefully for them, it was a little bit of a wake-up call in terms of, wow, this guy's actually coaching and he's talking about getting people. A big win for us, and we've talked about this on this podcast, is to get someone to go from 2 days to 3 days a week. That's a really big win.
Yeah.
Because if you think about that, that's 50% more exercise for that person than what they were currently doing. That's a really big change that's going to really move the needle. So I'm trying to figure out, the interesting thing about it is trying to figure out, besides, say, Peter Attia and Huberman and maybe Found My Fitness, what are these other kind of mainstream podcasts that people are listening to where you can make an impact with this audience? Because I'd love to do more of that stuff, because I think it's an area that I think I'm good at translating the difficult into simple. I do it well for trainers, and I think I can do it well for the average client too.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to your point about the 2 to 3 days a week. I think we did mention this on the podcast before, but I have one client who is 3 days a week, and he said the difference for him and he's like 66, the difference for him from 2 to 3 was, with 3 days a week now, it's more of a commitment, from more of a scheduling thing. He's like, it's not like, oh, if I miss Wednesday, I'll come Monday, or it's more of a, hey, I need to move things around. I am doing this. I'm committed to this. So, and then, I think those filler days like Tuesday and Thursday, he's throwing things in there now because it feels right. And he's more like, he wants to do it because he's in 3 days a week.
But think about that, where you think that somebody moving from 2 days to 3 days is a real big change in commitment for them. That's something that the average person who really likes exercise isn't looking at it that way. And I think that's the biggest thing that we need to try to get across is, and that we talked on the Attia podcast, just about the stats. I mean, 90% of people are not doing some sort of effective exercise program. We've got experts saying that gardening is exercise, that go outside and pull some weeds. And it's like, wow, I've been saying this for years, but we've set some incredibly low bars for people as it relates to exercise, where if you garden and take a walk, people are saying, hey, you're healthy and you're moving. And it's like, oh, I don't know if that, to me, it's certainly not unhealthy, but I think we've got to realize that there's got to be a resistance component in there, and there's got to probably be a more aggressive conditioning component, a real opportunity somewhere along the way to actually get your heart rate up. So
Yeah.
we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, sure. I think because we always confuse this stuff with like the aesthetic piece, right? And instead of looking at the, hey, what are the, if you resistance train 2 to 3 days a week and you got out there and did, a walk every day in the morning for 15 or 20 minutes and did your gardening and made sure your NEAT was up. And basically if you looked at your blood work and felt, you're eating relatively healthy, but I think the problem is it always comes down to the aesthetics. And going back to, I think, what did Jeff say? Out of all his programs, he's super, super successful with the online stuff as well. He said like 20% of the people who buy his programs finish it. So there's a long way to go with the online stuff as well.
There's a long way to go in
Crazy.
all of it. When you look at it, there is a really long way to go in terms of, and that's, I always kind of go back to, Alan Cosgrove always tells the story of the shoe salesman, and he probably tells it in half his talks. But we've got to be able to look at it in that. And for those who somehow have not heard us say this story, but Alan always tells a story, and I don't know, he got it from a book somewhere, but two shoe salesmen hop on a plane and go to some foreign country. They land, they get off the plane, they walk out. Both guys go down the ramp onto the tarmac, and they realize nobody has any shoes on. And one guy turns around and just walks back on the plane and thinks, no one wears shoes here. I'm going home. And the other guy's on the phone saying, send me everything you got, and it's like, that's the difference in terms of when you realize you could be really pessimistic about the fact that 90% of people aren't doing something really effective from an exercise standpoint, or you could be hugely optimistic about the size of your potential audience and the fact that, oh my God, I mean, I've got 90% of the world to chase around here to try to get them in the gym. So I prefer to look at it from that perspective and think, hey, if we can capture some of that 90%, get them in the gym twice a week, get them experiencing, because again, we talk about, right, experience the community, experience feeling better, tell your friends. I look at people all the time and think there's a reason we have a really successful business and maybe some other people don't. And part of it is that um, they don't look. I always remember the Anthony Robbins thing. He used to always say, success leaves clues, right? Look at the people that are being successful and say, okay, what are they doing? Why are these people being successful? And generally, it's not because they're self-obsessed with their own exercise program.
Yeah, there you go. Speaking of their own exercise program, I mean, I know these aren't only things you're doing, things you're teaching, but you've been posting a lot of videos on Instagram. So we're going to go over some of the videos that you're posting. By the way, everybody, this is a Instagram lesson 101. Coach Boyle decided he was doing a lot of collaborations and a lot of reposting, and he started posting his own videos of doing exercises. And if you saw the views on them compared to some of the other things, so it's a lesson like to not only do your collaborations and repost, but make sure you're posting every day, just something. So
And good content, stuff that people are interested in. It's not, again, not rocket science, but if you look at it, it was funny because my engagement last month went over 1 million views. And somebody had said, oh, well, that's the Attia podcast effect. And I said, it wasn't, because the Attia podcast came out on September 22nd, which means it wouldn't have affected, you go back, because you're looking at those videos. The 90,000 view video it preceded the Attia podcast. There was another
yeah.
one, 70,000, that preceded the Attia podcast. So it wasn't that. It was simply making a conscious choice to say, hey, people are looking at Mike Boyle's Instagram more than likely for exercise education, strength and conditioning, general fitness, whatever we want. And if I'm not posting that, obviously I'm not taking advantage of the platform that I'm playing around on.
Mike, another thing, I know I wasn't even going to talk about Instagram. I will say too, what you've done, like what you're able to do in terms of what I think separates you from a lot of these, the experts, other experts. If you look at Peter Attia's post, people were commenting on it. You were commenting on all the comments. And like none of those three said a damn word. You were posting like crazy. People were commenting and you were posting and explaining. And I think that's a huge thing that people have to realize.
That's a big Jordan Syatt thing. When we had him at our winter seminar, that was one of the things that he said. He was like, comment on every comment, and don't just like them. Don't just say great, thanks. Try to. And I took that to heart when he said that, and I've tried to be much better about that in general. And specifically here, I said, okay, I've got a really large engagement opportunity. I'm going to take advantage of this engagement opportunity, and I'm going to try to re-engage with a lot of these people. So you're right, I did. I spent quite a bit of time writing comments.
Yeah, somebody had put it a good way. They said, imagine if I went up to Mike Boyle and Mike said, and I said, hey Mike, check out this single leg squat I'm doing, and all you did was this, thumbs up, right? Like, because that's what we do sometimes, or we put a little heart there. But yeah, the comment and actually saying something and not just putting emojis and you're always doing that. So good stuff. Mike, one of them was you posted an ISO, kind of like a Nordic ISO. And I think people misunderstood. It wasn't the only thing you were saying. It was like, this is how you start. You said, don't bother with Nordics until, that was the key word, you mastered this ISO. Glutes, hamstrings, anterior core, just a slight forward lean until you feel it. So make sure you don't get any hip flexion. Hold for 5 seconds, repeat 3 to 5 reps, then progress to the eccentrics, holding to that same posture. So you're just telling people to learn to keep that really good posture, that straight line from the knee through the hip to the ear. And you said most athletes are a long way from a good Nordic. Can you just talk about, for a lot of people, how long do you really need to do this for?
We tend to do one phase like that. So we're going to do 3 weeks of just what we would call hamstring isos. Just lean out, grab it. It is very much, it would probably fall in the motor control category in terms of, hey, I want you to have your glutes on. I want you to have your anterior abdominal wall tight. And then I want you to just come out and engage your hamstrings while you keep that, whatever we want to call it, stacked posture. Then for 3 weeks, we're going to add some eccentric to that, trying to not lose that posture. Because people argue with me, but when you watch people do Nordics and people will show videos of them, they're just not maintaining the proper position. They're just trying to do something that looks like a successful down and up, which usually ends up with a really big degree of hip flexion. And it's, hip flexion, trunk flexion, I guess, however you want to look at it, but it's just not good. And I'm trying to make the point that, hey, there's a right and wrong. And people, I love the people, oh, there's a lot of ways. That one guy said, there's 19 ways to do that exercise. I was like, post a couple.
You said post the other 19. I was laughing.
But you know what I mean? Because I love these people. They don't post shit, excuse my language.
Yeah.
But there's 100 ways to do that. I'm like, okay, post 5. Start tomorrow. Tag me on them so I can comment on yours. Because the one thing I realized today that I kind of wrote down is that the more engagement you get, the more trolling you're going to get. And that has absolutely happened. People are dragging up old articles, and it's just kind of part of the deal, right? And
Yeah.
I think if you don't have trolls, you're probably not succeeding.
Yeah. Or you're not pushing it as much as you're not really saying what's going on in your brain.
Yeah.
So I can attest to that. Coach, barbell, one leg, straight leg deadlift for all you gave a little caveat. Hey, for all the gotchas, yeah, I know the knee's a little bent. You said it's an exercise we need to do more with our better athletes. You like one dumbbell version than the 2 dumbbell versions as progressions, but the barbell really allows our athletes to load. But what I've noticed with some people on that move, Mike, is that the moving leg, that hip will externally rotate as the leg gets higher. How strict are you on that? Not the video you showed was awesome. I thought her hips were pointing straight down, but a lot of people will kind of rotate up. I have a guy
rotating, and I'm going back to one kettlebell, and I'm going to try to cue them.
You think it's the weight then? You think it's the weight that's causing that?
Well, I don't think it's the weight, but I think I've got to give them, you go back to sort of the Todd Wright, Gary Gray thing. I've got to give them a different driver. And the driver, if I want to drive that hip down and I want to drive rotation of the pelvis against the femur, then I've got to go back to one hand. I've got to make a modification. So I think some people will do it. Sean Scanier's got a really good clue. He was like trying to get them to just, if they just internally rotate the foot of the up leg, that will tend to pull the pelvis around, which is a pretty good cue that we try with people. But sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, they're really not ready for that progression.
Okay.
And so, okay, you're not ready. You don't really have the pelvis on femur control that we want you to have. All right, let's go back and get it, and then we'll come back after it. The other thing you could probably do that I haven't thought about is you could probably load one side. You could probably load the up leg side heavier, which would force somebody to do it. But I feel like you're chasing it too hard at that point, and you're probably better off going to something else.
Yeah, 2 things I've done is I've taken that, the weight and kind of told them to aim the down leg, aim almost to the outside of it to kind of force them to, right?
I like to tell them, kettlebell, put the kettlebell on your foot. I want you to put it right on the toes of that down leg. So you have to go across, and you just that's why with one, you can't do that with 2, and you can't do it with a bar. You can't get them. You probably could with it, but it would be really awkward.
Yeah, there's too much. Well, for the general population person, I'm just thinking about my one guy right now that I'm really been working on with him, and there's too much going on. So yeah, when you have 2 in your hand and it's just then to tell him, so yeah, take a step back. Also, what I've been having him do is in his warm up, we've now done those hip airplanes to really get him to learn an awareness of that hip being level, right? So they kind of come up into that.
And that's where I like some of David Gray's kickstand stuff too. I think David's done a good job of popularizing the kickstand stuff and trying to get people to think about a little bit more pelvis on femur, because there you can work when they're more stable with that back foot still touching. you can work a lot of different reach patterns. And that's where, again, like I said, you can go back to, I don't always agree with the Gary Gray, Todd Wright kind of thing, but
Yeah.
I think when you're trying to get pelvis on femur, trying to figure out, okay, what's my driver? We've been playing around with cross body pulling. We've been playing around a lot of stuff. We were doing one. I have one of my clients where I've got him hugging the heaviest medicine ball. He's 25, so he's hugging a 25-pound medicine ball, and I've got him trying to drive his shoulder down as he rotates around. So there's a lot of ways to think, okay, how am I gonna engage that hip and that core and the rotation component that I want? So I may fill in that, maybe fill in that one someday. Who knows?
All right, there we go.
I gotta do better about filming what I'm trying to do. Like that's why even with those the one leg straight leg deadlift, I was like, okay, I'm gonna film it. I filmed one of the girls. Shay was nice enough to do the skater squat trap bar deadlift comparison for me. That was just a picture. That picture got 70,000 views.
Jeez, that's a
Right?
lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. But I'm trying to be better about, okay, what's in my head, and can I get that onto video so that I can get that onto my Instagram so that I can get people engaging with that. And I'm doing better. That's all.
Yeah. Another one was, this may be one of the best exercises you aren't doing. Basically, it's a unilateral version of, surprise, of the internet popular hip thrust. We hate the word thrust and use the term lift. No need for huge weights, sore hips from bars, etc. That setup, I want to kill people with that setup. They put like 2 heavy kettlebells next to a box, and they use the box instead of using a bench, and then they're coming over, and then they leave everything there. You've seen my videos on that one. The a-holes.
Does it bother you when people leave stuff in the gym?
That does not bother me at all. Mike, I want to ask you about some of the cues. Exhale hard, recruit the deep stabilizers. So because most cueing is kind of before a lift, right? We're holding it in, and then on the way up, we're breathing in, breathing out.
Exhale hard on the way up, because one of the things that we've established.
Exhale hard on the way up, Mike. I'm sorry.
Way up. Yep, on the way up.
Okay.
Because your deep abdominal muscles are muscles of end stage exhalation. So it's that idea. If I really want to engage my abdominal muscles, what I need to do is try to blow out all of my air, because as I try to get that, it goes back to that old PRI, value of blowing up a balloon article. When I'm trying to get all my air out, what's going to get the end of the air out is going to be my transverse abdominis, my internal oblique, my external oblique. And it was funny because somebody else was saying, oh, I thought they should take a really big breath and try to blow everything up. And I'm like, no, that's we don't want a strategy. I always said that's the airbag strategy, the old squat strategy. Take a huge breath, and I used to think inflate your airbags, right? Inflate your airbags, and that's going to help you to support the weight. And then as you're coming up in the squat, let that air out. Now we're doing almost the reverse in these types of exercises and saying, nope, when you're going to contract your glutes, blow out air really, really hard, and try to get those deep abdominal muscles to be doing their job. Because the flaw in that exercise, and the flaw of hip thrust, when you watch it all the time, is that it turns into just a lumbar extension exercise. It is, if we think about the problem with back pain being the substitution of lumbar extension for hip extension, then literally the hip thrust teaches people, much the same way. It's why I don't like reverse hypers. There's some of these exercises where you're teaching people to lumbar extend and to make that look like hip extension. That's exactly the opposite of what you want. You're not really using your glutes, and you're not getting the patterning that you really want to get from any version of locomotion, running, jumping, whatever it is. You don't want to be substituting lumbar extension for hip extension. So that's what we're really trying to get in.
So I just want to clarify that, because it was a lot, but just about the breathing again. So if I'm in that top position, what I normally would think, I breathe in, not crazy breathe in, but
No,
right, hold it, and on the way down,
bottom position, I'm it's like I always think you're blowing yourself up. Like I'm
you're
pushing
blowing
air out as I come up. When I come up to the top, I'm gonna just inhale. I'm gonna let everything go back. Up, back, down. Inhale as I'm coming up. I think anytime you want stability, you want a really hard exhalation.
Okay. Cool. You also said push through the heel, which is something we, recruit posterior chain, but people were asking about, Mike, what about a flat foot? Because people talk about the toe in gait activating the glutes. So that's, I think for more advanced athletes or clients, they can have a flatter foot if they understand the concept. But in the beginning, I always kind of think heel drive.
What we saw, and this was the problem, what we saw is that when people push whole foot, ball of the foot, what they're really doing is they're engaging in their anterior chain. What they're doing is they're producing a leg extension type force to help themselves get back up. Those are the people who tell you, I don't feel it in my glutes, I don't feel it in my hamstrings. And we realized it was a big substitution pattern for people that we found when I very first was doing this. I've told this story a bunch of times. We had a wide receiver kid named TJ Hushmanzadi who played for the Bengals, chronic hamstring strains. And I had never thought about this strategy of bridging. So we're taking him through some exercises, and I'm doing what I always do. Where do you feel this? Now I'm teaching him to bridge. We're just doing a basic bridge off the floor. And he's like, "Oh man, I feel it in my quads a lot." And I was like, "In your quads?" But then I realized what he was doing, because he doesn't want to use his hamstrings, is he's pushing into the floor. So he's making it, a leg extension kind of leg press sort of quad. I hate the word quad dominant, but that's what you're doing. He's making it a very quad dominant exercise because he's not used to using his posterior chain. So what we had with him, we were like, okay, we don't want him to do that. So the cue was get his feet off the floor. So only his heels are engaged, and then drive down as hard as you can through your heels. And he was one of those guys like, whoa, hamstring cramps. And I mean, he was
Yeah.
struggling. This is an NFL receiver. This was a guy like really talented guy. But he went from, I still remember he came, this was the year I was at Exos. He came and he said, if I get hurt this year at camp, my career is probably over. He went back the next year, and I think he made the Pro Bowl, actually.
Wow.
And played the whole year. But it was just a matter of straightening his hamstrings out. And I'd never forgotten that particular part of looking and thinking, wow, I can't believe that he strategized this into sort of this leg extension to get his butt off the ground. I wouldn't have even thought of that pattern if I hadn't had the presence of mind to say, where do you feel it? And that's why we emphasize that so much with everybody. Ask somebody where they feel it, because you'll get surprising answers. Sometimes someone will answer and you'll look and think, you do?
Yeah.
Great, like crazy stuff. And then you start to think, okay, I understand what this person is doing. It teaches you about what somebody's compensation strategy is.
Absolutely. Mike, we'll finish up on the Spanish split squat video, the knees over ankles.
I can't talk about that, Anthony, because I'm lacking 2 degrees of terminal knee extension in that leg.
You did. That's
I
right.
didn't realize until Nitpicker Joe, or whatever his handle was, ended up pointing that out to me. And I looked and I thought, wow, I think I am missing a little bit of terminal knee extension there. But sorry. I love that exercise. I think I've become such a huge fan. That unilateral Spanish squat, if you have somebody with knee pain, it is an absolute game changer, because it is literally a split squat that facilitates closed chain terminal extension. You just got to make sure you get that last degree or two. Otherwise, the internet police will come for you.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, would you look for that? Would somebody be like, hey, that person
I
just doesn't
probably
have
look more now than I ever would have, because I didn't honestly, after I looked at mine, I was kind of like, I guess if I really look at it, I am missing a degree or two. And obviously 65-year-old knees.
Yeah, in your head, you were thinking you had terminal.
I was fully extended. Don't worry. In my head, I was fully extended. That's why kind of when I first saw the comment, I thought that's stupid. And then I looked and I thought, well, it is still stupid, but I understand why he's saying it. He's not looking at it from the guys, that's not a terminal knee extension because you didn't get the terminal extension. And I was kind of like, actually, I did probably get the terminal extension for my knee. But I can see where you might look and think, oh, I think there's another degree or two that we could squeak out of there. And hopefully this will get people to go look at that video. So
and here you want to talk about nitpicking, because I look at feet a lot when I'm watching these videos, and I noticed that you had your socks on in the hip lift exercise, but you had your UFO sneakers on for this one. And this is a serious question because for me, if I'm doing something like that, especially I have post rehab, knee rehab, meniscus that I want to add this to, but I'm going to have her shoes off. Were you just doing that for filming? That was not.
I just
okay.
wanted. I was like, okay, I got to get this.
Yeah.
I got to get this, in the can, in the phone, so that I can throw it up there, because it was. I kept looking for it on my phone and realized I was like, I've never filmed a unilateral version of this Spanish squat. I can't believe I never filmed that. And I probably spent 20 minutes one day with my phone going through every video trying to find it. And then I realized, okay, I guess I never did this.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, those UFO sneakers are awesome. I love the UFOs anyway, but they're nice and comfortable. Coach, awesome. Thanks for doing this. Keep posting those videos so we have some more content to talk about, and your engagement goes up. So appreciate you.
Right. My troll numbers will go up too.
There you go.
Thanks.